Hi there, my name is Shelly Weir, President and CEO of the Florida Institute of Certified Public Accountants, and welcome to the next episode of CEO Conversations. I am so excited for today's episode. Here we are at the start of the college football season, and in one of the most iconic stadiums in the state of Florida, here at the University of Florida. I'm thrilled to be joined by Melissa Stuckey, who is the Associate Athletic Director of the University of Florida's University Athletic Association, or UAA for short, a different kind of UAA than I know that so many of our CPAs are familiar with. Melissa oversees the day-to-day operations of the multi-million-dollar, well into the six figures as I understand it, Athletic Association, and brings over 25 years of experience in college athletics, including the budgeting and financial management. Melissa, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. So excited to dig into today's topic and just in this amazing venue. It's getting me into the spirit for an exciting season.
2 weeks from now, we're kicking it off.
It'll be so exciting. Well, share a little bit about kind of your role here, your background, what you do for the association, just to get us started.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the CFO for the Athletic Association. We have a very unique structure here that isn't common necessarily to, especially inside the state of Florida and amongst our peers in the Power Five, where we are a separate 501c3 organization. And so all of our employees and staff, we have a pension plan, and they are employees of the association. So it gives me an opportunity to do a diverse set of work responsibilities, including debt service, pension management, day-to-day budgeting, fiscal responsibility, and utilization of resource.
Fantastic. Well, let's talk a little bit about the UAA first, since it is so unique and it is something that is special to the University of Florida. How does it operate? How did it come to be? And maybe a little bit about what your day-to-day responsibilities look like.
So actually, I'm very fortunate I did not create this, even though I've been here for a long time, but Dr. Tigert back in 1929 actually incorporated the Athletic Association and our fundraising arm, Gator Boosters. And so he was a man of vision, I think, because it allowed for the association and our fundraising and our boosters to be able to be nimble and inside an industry that gave us the flexibility to both react but also stay in alignment with the university. And so it's a structure that was very forward thinking actually at the time. And it does allow us, we're fully aligned with the university, with the state of Florida, but it does allow for us to be nimble inside of an industry that does shift and change and look a little bit different. And for those familiar with state structures, we are a DSO of the university, which is a legislative state structure. So we are really fully and wholly owned by the University of Florida and the state of Florida. But we're able to take care of our athletes and do some things that we need to do that are reflective of the industry that we're in, which is very much the concept then of a direct support organization inside of a university and inside the state.
And I imagine it probably gives you a little bit of a competitive advantage when you're looking at recruits and kind of wrapping your arms around them and making sure that they're well taken care of while they're here at the university.
Absolutely. And it does, it at times, the university, I always say, has to operate in such a manner that they have to manage to the majority. And we have a situation where our majority just can look a little bit different and feel a little bit different. And the approach on how they come to the University of Florida, how they find the University of Florida, just looks and feels different. So as using recruiting, then it gives us an opportunity to put our best foot forward. And so that these prospective students have the opportunity to come here and learn everything there is about the University of Florida, but inside an expectation around a major college athletic program.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about what I know has been a bit of a controversial, but it's a huge impact on college athletics right now, specifically football, with NIL, name, image, and likeness, which is still relatively new to the concept here in collegiate athletics within the last couple of years, if I'm not mistaken. Let's talk a little bit about, maybe for some of our CPA members that don't know what NIL is, what is it, and how is it changing how you operate the financial management of the association here at UF?
Yes, great. So actually, prior to July 1st of 2021, prospective students and student athletes could not profit or manage their own name, image, and likeness. And so that was created by a state law, actually inside the state of Florida. And then the NCAA, which has long been the governing body for athletic departments, had also adapted its rules to allow for whatever the state law allowed around NIL would then become your set of rules or guidelines around name, image, and likeness. And so a very significant improvement really for the life of a student athlete and for their ability to be associated with a major brand such as the University of Florida and to utilize that opportunity. Many of them too specialize in something even besides athletics.
Sure.
And so they often might have been penalized previously where they could not utilize that specialization because it jeopardized their NCAA eligibility. And so again, probably a really long time coming, and we'll continue to move and shift and change as each of us develop from the perspective of the association, the student, the coach, the university, and the state of Florida.
And I love what you said about continue to develop, because there's still so much that we're trying to navigate in this new world of NIL, and it certainly differs state to state and university to university in some cases. And I know that that is a very delicate dance with compliance and just the overall vision for how it's integrated into the programs here. So I commend you for what you guys are doing, because I know that it's a bit like flying a plane blind at times,
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. And I think for all parties involved, right? So we each are evolving and learning almost every day what this looks like, what it will become, what it means to everybody.
It's amazing to think about where we'll be 10, 20 years from now with this, and looking back and how this moment was so transformative for college football, and hopefully by then we'll have it all figured out, right?
Yes,
just a bit more. Yeah. So let's talk specifically here in the state of Florida, since we are both Floridians based here in our beautiful state. For those CPAs that are members of our organization that may live outside the state of Florida, can we talk a little bit about the state of Florida's intercollegiate compensation and Bill of Rights, and how that is unique to the state, and what that looks like, and how it kind of governs how you manage things here at the association?
So I think there's really some very key significant components to that state law that are specific to the state of Florida. The first being that the association or the athletic department or the university cannot compel compensation. So it must be done at arm's length. At the same time, though, the entity is required to provide financial education, be aware, have information in and around so that we could help potentially advise when appropriate to assist a student athlete. So that is a challenge, though, because that's not consistent across all 50 states. So even within the footprint that is the Southeastern Conference, their state legislation, it may not exist at all. It may look different. It may have varying components to that. I think another key component as well has to do with regulation from the state's high school association. So in our particular case, as a state, as a high school athlete in the state of Florida, you cannot profit from your name, image, or likeness. And so that may differ as well. So again, it's complicated, and we will all continue to move forward to provide the best opportunity to the student athletes and the prospective student athletes.
Which is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
Can you give us an example for maybe some that may not understand in layman's terms? What can we not do in the compel for compensation world? Give us an example of what would still be a no-no in today's world of NIL.
And so let's just say there's a circumstance where Nike, for example, is our apparel provider and our exclusive apparel provider. And so we can assist a student athlete to make contact with Nike, but we cannot be involved in any of the negotiation or utilization of any revenue or contract agreement with the student athlete and Nike.
Got it. And that's where that education really comes into play. That's kind of like sending an 18-year-old kid off into the jungle without any type of direction.
Yep. Absolutely.
Super important. Amazing. What did the NCAA's well-being survey tell us about collegiate athletics, and how does that tie into all of this that we're talking about today?
Yeah, no, I think that survey is an important marker in time. I do think what's interesting, again, as we evolve over time, I think the responses potentially and what there are in terms of issues for student athletes will shift and change some. But I think it's a good way just to gauge the temperature. It certainly indicated that additional education would be preferred. I think for the group of folks that we're talking with today, when we talk about taxes and we talk about managing your own finances, this is a territory for some students that just didn't exist for them until after their college years, or even well after their college years. So just navigating the complexity that is the federal tax and or state tax. Where are you a resident? Are you an international student? So international students are very specifically excluded, actually, via NCAA rules to be able to be compensated for name, image, and likeness.
Good to know.
So that's just an example of students need as much information as possible to help navigate. And a good example of where we can assist them in at least identifying providers and some information, but again, at an arm's length in terms of compensation.
It sounds like this survey then, as you were thinking about it from the day-to-day operations in terms of how it informed how you best support the student athletes, it sounds like education really is at the top of the list, as it should be.
Yeah,
right.
Especially just in this particular component we were talking about earlier, there's a lot of different components to that survey, right? And so just sort of overall quality of life and resources and other likes and desires where student athletes can feel better supported. And so this is just one aspect of that.
Definitely. So from your chair, and you're sitting in the CFO chair, how has name, image, and likeness changed how you manage the accounting and finance functions?
Yeah.
If you think about a couple of years ago, before this was here, how has your world kind of shifted around, given that NIL is now part of the day-to-day operations of the association?
No, I think what is interesting is so far to date, not a lot really has changed, right? I think what has been a challenge remains a challenge and will be an ongoing challenge for all athletic departments is the diversity of the student athlete and the resources that particular student or team or coach needs, and how we allocate those resources. So really to date, we're a year in, and name, image, and likeness has worked really in partnership with helping provide additional resources potentially to our student athletes, and it hasn't really affected the day-to-day around how our resources are coming in and how we're allocating those. I would think that there's the potential over time that we might start to look at some of that differently, but it literally is almost a day-to-day conversation.
Well, on that note, we were talking a few minutes ago, obviously this summer, everything in the college football world has been all about conference expansion, right? Yeah. There are those that believe we're going to have these two super conferences between the Big Ten and the SEC or something of that nature. And I think it was last week or very recently that the Big Ten came out with their media rights deal. And you and I were just talking, which is something that I didn't realize. When you think about these major media rights deals and the money that's coming in to the university and to the athletic programs, share a little bit about how that is financially managed across all sports here at UF, because we do have some sports that maybe are relying on this type of money, right, to fund their programs. So share a little bit about that, because I'm not sure that everybody realizes the impact across the entire spectrum.
Right. It's easy in the 140 letters of a Twitter tweet, right, to jump to many conclusions, understandably. And so I think pulling back or knowing and understanding the level of resource needed across all the institutions in our state to support student athletes and that experience, and do so in an equitable manner, is very challenging and has been challenging. So I think that what it does represent, first of all, is sort of the value of the product, right? And so I say this often, we deal in emotional currency here. So that is often a challenge when you are in accounting, and there's GAAP rules and there's
very black and white.
Yes, other requirements that need things to line up black and white,
right.
and many times are practical, but not necessarily in day to day. And so it is a challenge to navigate that world. And then also there is significantly more revenue that is coming into college athletics, but that emotional currency, we have most of our sports lose money, and so, or run a net loss. And so the impact, though, that your softball program or your gymnastics program can have both to your athletic program, to the institution, again, the quality of life specifically for those student athletes and the folks that you're reaching inside your brand, that is resources well spent.
Sure.
Right? And so, but you're going to have them in order to do that and to maintain it.
Absolutely.
And I always say this too, we are a microcosm of the campus. So many of the same challenges that are happening more broadly around students, and we're all here for the students, is happening inside the athletic department as well. We just often end up being a more forward-facing example of what's going on campus.
And I love what you said about the brand, because I think about my own little boys. I have one that is a competitive swimmer, and he's 9 years old, so he still has quite a bit of ways from collegiate swimming. But that might be the thing that gets him excited about coming to the University of Florida. But the swimming program may not be bringing in the same amount of revenue, obviously, as football or basketball or baseball does. But in terms of that overarching brand, it's critically important from the recruitment perspective.
I mean, and our swim program here is a great example. We had 3 Olympic gold medal athletes on our swim team here, and 1 has graduated, so we still have 2 though that are competing, and so we want to support that.
Sure.
Again, right?
Absolutely.
It's an awful lot of fun to watch those athletes compete and represent the University of Florida, and especially really at the highest level for them with the Olympics. And so it takes resources to do that. So it's important to understand as these resources come in, and again, we read those 140 letters in that tweet, and the zeros have grown for sure. They have been added, but at the same time, so has really our ability to then best support and attract the most competitive student athletes we can.
Absolutely. Well, I know that neither you or I are the commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey, thankfully, probably for both of us, right? I can't even imagine the pressure. But last question for you, as we think about the conference expansion and again, the impact on the financial management with Texas and Oklahoma coming into the SEC, I imagine there are some very robust media negotiations transpiring, and especially in the wake of what happened last week with the Big Ten. Any closing thoughts on maybe how those two powerhouse brands might help to elevate the University of Florida brand and maybe some of the financial management and ramifications here at the association.
Absolutely. And so actually our television contract had been negotiated about 18 months ago. So it did not at that time reflect Texas and Oklahoma joining. What will happen from a fiscal perspective is that the additional income will then be divided now over the additional number of teams, and everybody will stay whole. So not an immediate impact financially from those two teams joining the league, but from a competitive standpoint, from an emotional currencies perspective, from the brand both of the conference and individually for the University of Florida, it'll be a very good fit inside the SEC footprint to add those two teams. It's interesting if you go back and you just look at college football playoffs, you look at softball, baseball, I mean, so many sports, swimming across the board, those two teams actually bring significant competitive culture to the Southeastern Conference.
Absolutely.
And so it should elevate, sort of lift all boats, if you will.
Indeed. It's going to be exciting to watch. I can't wait to see it all come to life in the next few years here. Anything that FICPA or our CPA members could do to help your athletes now as we're navigating this new world?
Yeah, I would say don't believe every tweet. That would be one. Sometimes you might have to dig like a little bit deeper. And I would say the nature of accountants often likely these are folks that are going to dig a little bit deeper.
Sure.
And then, again, opportunity both to support on an ongoing basis prospective and current student athletes who are going to have the needs really for services from CPAs as they navigate their NIL world. And also too, just, I think our affinity with each of our brands. So many of us maybe went to the University of Florida or Florida State or UCF, and support of the athletic mission of those institutions, I really think is in line with what the state of Florida and those individual institutions are working towards.
Very much so. And it's exciting for us to think about how the CPA profession as a whole can help with that education and help make an impact, all for the better for these young adults. So, well, thank you so much for taking a few minutes today. I hope this will be the first of many conversations that we'll have over the next few years, and wishing the Gators, this is the one time you'll hear me say this as an FSU alum, wishing the Gators an amazing football season ahead, and all the exciting new changes here at the university between the new football facility, Coach Napier being here. I'm going to be excited to see how it all comes together. So sending you our very best. And for all of our other football fans and our CPA members across the state, we thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you on the next episode of CEO Conversations. Be safe and be well.